I was sent this story and we need to talk about it. It seems like South Korea is going to have to create an old man mojo dojo casa house for all of the lonely men. Now, this article is coming from CNN. A loneliness epidemic is spreading worldwide. Seoul is spending 327 million to stop it. Every year, thousands of South Koreans, mostly middle-aged men, die quietly and alone, cut off from their family and friends. It sometimes takes days or even weeks before their bodies are found. These are the country's lonely deaths, known as Godoksa in Korean, is part of a larger problem of loneliness and isolation across the country, an issue so pressing the government is pulling out all the stops to fight it. In the bustling capital of Seoul, city authorities announced this week they would spend 451.3 billion won, that's nearly $327 million, over the next 5 years to create a city where no one is lonely. Is this the Old Man Mojo Dojo Casa House in South Korea? Their new initiatives include loneliness counselors available on a 24/7 hotline and online platform for similar counseling, as well as follow-up measures including in-person visits, consultations, according to the metropolitan government. Loneliness and isolation are not just individual problems, but tasks that society must solve together, Seoul Mayor Oh Si-hyun said in a news release. The city will mobilize all of our municipal capacity to help lonely people heal and return to society. This is wild coming from a society that is so anti-woman and anti-feminist. I don't know how they're going to solve all of this together when they don't even have the males in alignment with even being acting like women are human. The way they treat women in South Korea is deplorable. Of course, these men are going to be lonely. They deserve to be lonely. The city also plans to introduce expanded psychological services in green spaces, nutritional meal plans for middle aged and elderly residents, a dedicated search system to identify isolated residents who need help, and activities to encourage people to venture outside and connect with others, such as gardening, sports, book clubs, and more. Experts have welcomed the measures, but say more needs to be done, partly because the loneliness in South Korea is tied to certain unique parts of Korean culture that are difficult to change. Loneliness is a significant social issue right now, so efforts or policies to address it are absolutely necessary, said An Soo-hyun, a psychology professor at Myungji University, cautioning, however, that there needs to be careful consideration about how effectively these measures will be implemented. Thousands of lonely deaths. The problem of loneliness has gained national attention over the past decade as the number of related issues increased, such as young people who withdraw from the world and spend their days isolated at home, often for months at a time. The phenomenon known by the Japanese term hikikomori has become increasingly common. South Korea had up to 244,000 such recluses in 2022 by one estimate. The number of lonely deaths has been rising, reaching 3,661 last year, up from over 3,500 in 2022 and over 3,300 in 2021. So the number is going up, according to the Ministry of Health and Welfare's latest figures released last week. Another factor behind the uptick could be the country's demographic crisis. An aging population and declining birth rate mean there have been consistently more deaths than births in recent years. South Korea's overall death rate is rising, and that includes lonely deaths. But the figures still speak to a larger problem that seems to impact middle-aged and elderly men the most. More than 84% of the lonely deaths recorded last year were male, more than 5 times the number of female deaths, according to the ministry. Men in their 50s and 60s made up more than half the total group, making them particularly vulnerable to the risk of dying alone. So that whole trope of women dying and being alone with their cats, they really need to stop that. They really need to put that on the men that are dying alone. And these men in these extra patriarchal societies that really detest women, this is where they're going to end up. This This, where they are right now, where South Korea is right now, these incel groups, these red pillars, these manosphere men are going to end up just like this. This is where they should be watching these kin cells. What makes Koreans so lonely? Loneliness isn't unique to South Korea, and it's difficult to say that Koreans are particularly lonelier than others, said An, the psychology professor. However, when asked what makes them feel lonely, there are some differences compared to other countries, she said. In some cultures, loneliness is seen as a feeling that happens when relationships are not fulfilling, An said. In Korea, people say they feel very lonely when they feel they are not worthy enough or lack purpose. That sentiment has been echoed by other experts, with one previously telling CNN that many millennials and Gen Z Koreans are sensitive to criticism while being overly self critical and afraid of failure. A study from June this year found that the epidemic of loneliness reflects nuances in Korean culture, which emphasizes relational orientation or people defining themselves in relation to others around them. As a result, South Koreans may feel deep loneliness or a sense of failure if they feel they're not making a significant impact on others or society, the study said. This is a major difference from other countries, according to An. Koreans may have a thriving social life and close connections to others, but they still may feel lonely when they compare themselves to others and question whether they are useful, contributing enough to society, or falling behind. The study also identified other factors such as the rise in single person households, decline in social interactions outside of work and family, the dominance of social media, and how it fosters feelings of inadequacy, and South Korea's competitive, achievement oriented culture, which drives feelings of loneliness among those falling short of their own goals. It's wild that they're not mentioning 4B, where women are opting out of dealing with men in general. No marriage, no dating, no relationships with men at all, and no babies. This is all part of what is going on. I've even seen Korean feminists say the fifth B is blocking misogynistic males. South Korea is a highly patriarchal, highly misogynistic country. And this is the reason why they are in their find out season where these guys are actually expiring alone because they are pushing women away and women have the opportunity to live on their own free from men. And this is what happens. When we all pursue the same values excessively, we end up losing ourselves, An said. Our society demands highly collective social living, but often fails to respect the individual, meaning people struggle to deal with solitude or the feeling of failure. Government efforts. South Korean authorities have launched various initiatives over the years to combat the problem, including the Lonely Death Prevention and Management Act, which ordered the government to compile a comprehensive preventative plan and five yearly situation report. And in 2023, the government passed an amendment making some reclusive youth eligible for financial support, including up to 650,000 won or $475 per month for living expenses to help them re enter society. South Korea isn't alone in fighting this battle. Japan, where the hikikomori trend was first recognized and studied in depth, appointed a minister of loneliness and isolation in 2021. The following year, the government released an intensive plan of countermeasures, including 24/7 consultation service and the expansion of counseling and social work groups. Other countries, including the United Kingdom, have similarly appointed ministers of loneliness. The United States Surgeon General warned of an epidemic of loneliness and isolation in a 2023 advisory, urging measures such as building stronger social infrastructure and regulating online platforms. Even the World Health Organization launched a commission to fight loneliness in 2023, calling it a pressing health threat. But An says she has doubts about whether simply expanding physical connections will fundamentally solve the problem of loneliness. It's not something that can be easily changed by a single policy because there are complex, culturally specific factors at play, and a larger shift may be needed so individuals can develop the strength to be alone and face themselves. We need to cultivate the ability to care for both ourselves and others, but our life in society is so tough, so it feels like we lack the time to even care for ourselves. I'm going to continue this story in a part two, but I just want to remind people how women are treated in Korea. I follow Korean feminists, and they post messages all over Twitter talking about how men talk about women. And that's going to be my next video where I'm about to dive into some of these tweets from the Korean feminists. There's going to have to be a cultural shift because women are going to keep, pushing away from relationships with men if men insist on being deplorable. Anyways, look for part two of this video. Middle-aged men and elderly men in South Korea are dying lonely deaths, and their bodies are not being found possibly for weeks after they expire. Women are opting out of marriage, and a lot of this has to do with the anti-feminist, anti-woman sentiment in South Korea. And these articles are talking about, lonely deaths. They're talking about the birth rate plummeting to hell, but they're not talking about the culture that's making women opt out. You can see the culture as Korean feminists postings that are happening in Korea, and they're taking things and they're translating it into English for the rest of us to see. So this is a page called Korean Men Archives, and this person put out this tweet. Korean men are debating whether she is a feminist or not after she won the Nobel Prize, as they belittled the award she received. Korean men expressed outrage over her book, The Vegetarian, criticizing it as a feminist book ever since it won the Man Booker Prize. And the Gyeonggi Provincial Office of Education even labeled her books as harmful literature and disposed of it. Okay, so here is the woman, Han Kang. So she won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2024. It says for her intense poetic prose that confronts historical traumas and exposes the fragility of human life. So that is her book by Han Kang. Here are some of the comments about this woman and this book and award she won. The Gyeonggi Provincial Office of Education called for the complete disposal of all books by Han Kang, the Nobel Prize in Literature winner. Han Kang's work, The Vegetarian, has been designated as harmful literature, and there are recommendations for its disposal. As this fact was brought to light, a controversy arose, all because this woman won a Nobel Prize. Okay, so right here it says Han Kang should receive the Man Booker Prize instead of the Nobel Prize in Literature. And this comment says, it may be an unfamiliar award for those who don't usually read, but in the literary world, the Man Booker Prize is considered to be more prestigious than the Nobel Prize in Literature. Fact, she already won Man Booker Prize in 2018. I wonder how many men that are disparaging this woman's work have actually read the books. I haven't, but I'm not disparaging or disregarding this award that she won. And this is just one instance of how they are being anti-feminist. They believe that she's a feminist, so they need to disparage her online. Now we have this next tweet. A Korean man forcibly carves tattoos onto his girlfriend's whole body. And you see this man, you see the woman here getting this tattoos. Curfew is 8 p.m. You are not allowed to look at other men or have any encounter. A shocking real life story was broadcast. It's about a man who forcibly tattooed his girlfriend's body for ridiculous reasons. Duhan gets angry. Suhi's back is covered in tattoos with shocking content. So here is her back right here. Duhan cut off her t-shirt with scissors, saying he wanted to punish her. You must be punished, he shouted, and then tattooed her back with all of this. And the tattoos read, I will never look at another man. I swear to only love Kim Duhan until the day I die. I will never have any contact with another man. Keep in mind, this is a boyfriend, not a husband. Don't flirt with other men. Don't smile at other men. 8 p.m. curfew, never late. Kim Duhan and Yoon Suhi. Please know and understand that this could possibly be leading up to some loneliness, because how can this relationship really last despite this being tattooed completely on her back? There are so many things that the Korean feminists share, like how pregnant women are disparaged, how they never want to give up seats, how they put up signs that are anti-pregnant women. They keep on talking about the birth rate, but they don't talk about the culture a lot when it comes to the articles. You can find a lot about the culture in the tweets. Chumflick says, "What the hell is happening in South Korea?" Naomi says, "Wow, that's one abusive boyfriend, not even a husband yet." Sasha D is wondering, why is he not in jail? Angie was like, was he ever charged? We need to know. We don't find the answer to that. And like I said, the tweets are where you find what's going on in the culture. There are lots of South Korean women that I am following, and they speak to these types of things, which is cool. So you can have the government talking about the birth rates and all of this, but things won't change until the culture changes. In South Korea, the women are speaking, but the leadership doesn't seem to connect. Y'all join the conversation. Let me know what you think. If there's more tweets that I need to see, I'm over on Twitter as Bourbon Bougie. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.